Sunscreen is a scam, and here's why.
I never wore sunscreen.
These are actually more dangerous than you burning. These sunscreens that are on the market today are mostly toxic, and we know that they can actually cause cancer.
Sunscreen causes cancer. Sunscreen is toxic. Sunscreen is a scam. These posts are everywhere right now, and they've gone viral because fear always spreads faster than fact. And here's why it matters. If people believe it, they're risking the very thing sunscreen is meant to protect them from: skin cancer. When I saw this popping up on my feed, my nerdy spider senses went off. Because if sunscreen really caused cancer, why do dermatologists, the people who treat skin cancer every day, still beg us to use it? Either thousands of doctors are lying, or the internet is. Let's find out which. I'm Heather, science nerd, skincare skeptic, and the same person who made those tanning videos, so you know I couldn't resist digging into this sunscreen drama. By the way, if all this talk of sun cream and tanning myths has got you wondering how you can actually get a safe glow, I've put together this free guide called Glow Without the Gamble. I'll link it below so you can grab it after this. These viral clips all circle around 5 big claims. They say sunscreen blocks vitamin D, and therefore makes you sick. They say big sunscreen is hiding the truth. They say natural protection is safer. They say the chemicals are toxic. And the biggest claim of all, that sunscreen itself causes cancer. So is everyone on TikTok right, or are we being misled? Let's go through it one by one. Myth 1. Sunscreen blocks vitamin D and makes you sick. One of the most common claims is that sunscreen stops you making vitamin D, and this makes you sick. The logic sounds simple. Your skin makes vitamin D when UVB rays hit it. Sunscreen blocks UVB. Therefore, sunscreen must block vitamin D, which then gets linked online to weak bones, low immunity, even cancer. But here's the reality. Sunscreen itself isn't a force field. SPF 30 blocks about 97% of UVB, and most people don't apply it enough or forget to reapply. So in real life, some UV still gets through. That means your skin is almost always making at least some vitamin D, even if you wear sunscreen daily. And when researchers have looked into this, they don't find a problem. Multiple studies, including large Australian trials where people use sunscreen every day for years, found no meaningful difference in vitamin D levels compared to people who didn't. On top of that, you don't need hours of sunbathing to make vitamin D. Just a few minutes of incidental exposure, like walking outside, is often enough. And if you're worried, the safe fix is diet or a supplement. That's a lot safer than skipping sunscreen and risking DNA damage and skin cancer. Myth 2 is that big sunscreen is hiding the truth. You've probably seen this one. The idea that big sunscreen is lying to us. The story goes that dermatologists, regulators, and sunscreen companies know that these products are toxic, but they keep pushing them because it's profitable. Some people even compare it to big tobacco. Here's what's actually going on. Sunscreen isn't some unregulated beauty product. In the US, the FDA treats it like an over-the-counter drug. In Europe, the SCCS, the Scientific Committee on Consumer Safety, reviews ingredients. In Australia, the regulator treats sunscreen as a medicine, far from being ignored. Sunscreen is one of the most tested and restricted categories in skincare. And when issues do happen, they're not hidden. Remember when benzene contamination was found in some aerosol sprays? Those products were recalled because contamination was from the propellant, not the sunscreen itself. That's the system working. The other part of this claim is that dermatologists push sunscreen to make money. But most dermatologists don't sell sunscreen. They don't care what brand you buy. Their real incentive is prevention because it's safer for you and far less traumatic than cutting out skin cancers later. And finally, the big tobacco comparison doesn't hold. Cigarettes never had randomized trials proving they were safe. Sunscreens do have randomized trials showing they can reduce skin cancer, including fewer melanomas and fewer squamous cell carcinomas in people who use it daily. That's the opposite of a cover-up. Myth number 3, natural protection is safer. This one's everywhere. The idea that instead of sunscreen, you should protect yourself naturally. That might mean building a base tan, rubbing on coconut or carrot seed oil, or even just relying on diet or supplements. But a tan is not protection. A tan is your skin's response to DNA damage. The protection it gives you is about SPF 3, not enough to prevent cancer or aging. And those kitchen oils, they don't have reliable UV filters. Tests show coconut oil, carrot seed oil, or DIY recipes have SPF values way under 10. That's basically unprotected. Supplements like beta-carotene or chlorophyll don't create a barrier between your DNA and UV. At best, they give you a bit of colour or antioxidant support, but they don't stop mutations. The key point is that UV is the carcinogen. The only proven ways to reduce the risk are barriers, clothing, shade, and broad-spectrum sunscreen. Natural sounds comforting, but it doesn't equal safe when it comes to UV. Myth 4 is that sunscreen chemicals are toxic. You'll see a lot of posts calling sunscreen ingredients toxic. Things like oxybenzone, avobenzone, octocrylene, they're labelled as hormone disruptors or even carcinogens. And a lot of this comes from FDA studies where they found these ingredients in people's blood after sunscreen use. Here's what that really means. The FDA ran what's called a maximal use trial. People applied sunscreen to most of their body 4 times a day for several days. That's way more than most of us ever use. And yes, some sunscreen filters showed up in the blood, but detection doesn't equal dangerous. Drink coffee and we'll detect caffeine in our blood. Eat broccoli and we'll find broccoli compounds. The question isn't, is it there? Is it harmful at that level? And so far, the evidence says no. Even the FDA said that this doesn't mean sunscreen is unsafe. It just means to keep studying it. The hormone disruptor claims come from animal studies where rats were fed massive doses so high that you'd need to wear sunscreen head to toe every day for centuries to match them, not real-world exposure. And that Europe banned it claim, the EU didn't ban oxybenzone. They capped the percentage allowed. The same way you'd say a pinch of salt is fine, but a whole cup isn't. It's a safety margin, not proof of danger. And remember, even mineral sunscreens, zinc oxide, titanium dioxide are chemicals. Everything is a chemical. The only difference is organic filters absorb UV and turn it into heat, while inorganic ones scatter and absorb. Both categories are reviewed and considered safe. Myth 5, sunscreen gives you cancer.
Your sunscreen is giving you cancer, not the sun.
This is the big one. The claim that sunscreen itself causes cancer. A lot of posts share graphs showing melanoma rates rising since the 1970s.
As you can see in this chart, this is when sunscreen was first made, which is like the lowest melanoma rate it was ever, and then it's just spiking across with melanoma rates, which, in case you didn't know, that causes the big C. I'm not going to blame it all on sunscreen, but 99% of people use toxic sunscreen just like this one.
The suggestion is more sunscreen equals more cancer. But that's correlation, not causation. Two things rising at the same time doesn't mean one caused the other. If we followed that logic, we'd have to blame skinny jeans for melanoma because their popularity exploded in the same decades. It looks convincing on a chart, but it proves nothing. Observational studies have the same problem. People most likely to use sunscreen are usually already high risk, fair skin, sun sensitive, or people who spend a lot of time outdoors. That's called confounding. It makes sunscreen look guilty when it's really the risk profile of the user. So what happens when you remove the confounding and run a randomized controlled trial? In Australia's NAMBA trial, people told to wear sunscreen every day had about 40% fewer squamous cell carcinomas. Years later, they also had 50% fewer melanomas. And when you looked at the deadliest invasive melanomas, the risk was cut by almost 73%. That's not sunscreen causing cancer. That's sunscreen preventing it. And if you've heard the stories like, but my aunt wore sunscreen and still got skin cancer, that doesn't prove sunscreen caused it. Skin cancers often take decades to develop. Burns in your teens can show up much later. Wearing sunscreen now protects you from new damage. It doesn't erase the past. So, does sunscreen cause cancer? The evidence says no. The sun UV rays are the proven carcinogen, and sunscreen is one of the simplest tools we have to protect ourselves. If you want that bronze look without the risk, grab my free guide below. And if this video cleared up the sunscreen confusion, my other video will show you the safe tanning options that actually work and the gimmicks you should avoid at all costs. Watch it now because your future skin will thank you.